Good evening, everyone. My name's Arif, and I'm the Ecommerce Director at Morrisons. I'm going to talk to you about my career as the extreme generalist. I'll take you through some of the jobs I've had. I'll talk about some of the key skills I think we need in an e-commerce operation, and then some of the changes I'm seeing in e-commerce teams and some of the other changes in the industry. Before I wrote this presentation, I didn't realise quite how varied my career had been. I've had 20 different job roles across 15 different industries, and they're all up on the board there. There are obviously some cons to this, but some of the pros of working in so many different industries is it allows you to take the best from each industry into your own personal best practice mental model. And working in so many different functional roles allows you to join the dots between your teams. It also gives you quite a lot of credibility with your teams because you've walked a mile in their shoes. I'm a generalist in terms of function and industry, but I do have a specialism. Every single one of my jobs has been in digital and e-commerce, and my jobs are up there on the board. And it looks quite well planned, but it was a complete mix of chance encounters and serendipity. And I'll take you through the 4 phases of my career. The first one being as a techie, the second one being as a consultant, thirdly an entrepreneur, and then more recently my corporate life. So firstly, my life as a techie. It was 1996. I was just about to start my degree, and I got offered a job to join a startup. So I thought, do I do a degree to get a job, or I just get a job? So I just jumped in. And this was the Wild West. This was pre.com, and I was a software engineer writing e-commerce software, managing servers. We had no idea what we were doing. Nobody knew what they were doing, trying to fuse all of this paradigm-shifting culture of this thing called the internet, trying to make sense of all the technologies. It was absolutely brilliant fun. However, unfortunately, like many companies at the time, the company went bust. Now, the key point I learned from this part of my career, that a grounding in technology and understanding the fundamentals of the internet has really helped me as I've moved through my career. So I was very fortunate. There were very few e-commerce specialists around in 1999. So even though I didn't have a degree, Deloitte picked me up, and this is where I really started to get huge range of clients, huge range of end-to-end e-commerce experience, working across a whole load of industries. I then went to do a very similar job for the European Commission, helping them with companies all across Europe upskill their e-commerce capability. I think the key point I learned from this phase of my consulting career was how to understand the key levers of performance and how to pull on those levers for maximum effect. My wife was pregnant at the time, so I decided that I wanted to move out of consulting. I was absolutely sick of the traveling. So just a chance encounter at an industry event, I met a very charismatic Aussie guy, and we decided to start our own software and consulting practice. We were consulting on bringing e-commerce propositions to market, building our own e-commerce platforms, just working again with a whole range of very various clients. And it was very hand to mouth. Sometimes we got paid, sometimes we didn't get paid. It was just a real whirlwind time. We were very fortunate that the company was acquired by a larger advertising company, and this is where I had my first real career wobble. I was 30 years old, and I thought, oh my goodness, what do I do with my career? And I kind of thought, oh, I'll do an MBA. So I went and did an MBA at Cass Business School, and it was just a revelation for me. I had loads of holes in my skill set. I knew nothing about HR and accounting and economics and finance. And it was a brilliant way to accelerate my learning, and it was a great platform to launch the final phase of my career, which is the corporate phase. Over the last few years, I've had big people management, big P&L roles at Oracle, Lloyds Banking Group, and more recently, launching the Morrisons online business. So what do I think employers find interesting about my skill set? It's really hard to know, but I call out a couple of the real key ones, and actually they've been touched on by some of the previous speakers. That's customer and shareholder. So first of all, an absolute obsession with the customer. Now, a lot of people talk about it and give it lip service, but my job as Ecom Director is to be the voice of the customer in every single conversation, dialogue, and decision. And my Managing Director is an absolute master of this. To just give you an idea of what we do as a senior team, we spend at least 1 day a week facing the customer. That means out on vans, sitting in the call centre, responding to emails. We read every single customer email that comes into the business. We call at least one customer every day, and we all spend time facing customers. And it's just an amazing opportunity to get insight, to understand what customers like, what they don't like, what they need, what they don't need. And then we surface this information in the business. The second skill that's really important, again, has been talked about already, is trading. I think trading commercial experience is unbelievably important. I mean, running an e-commerce operation is ultimately keeping the customer happy, but also keeping the shareholders happy, hitting your sales and margin targets. I mean, it's great to understand about testing and design, but ultimately the channel is there to hit its P&L. So when you walk into investment board and ask for a whole chunk of money for that next great technology, you're much more likely to get that investment if you've been hitting your numbers. So I'm going to give this a go, actually. I've debated whether I should do this. I want some audience participation. So everyone just stand up if you're able to do so. I've got a little exercise on some research we've seen recently. So just everyone, imagine you're walking into your house. It's dark, but you can see a light switch in front of you. And what I'd like you to do, if it's safe to do so, is just show me what you do, how you would turn the light on, motion to me. So what I would do personally, I'd walk into my house and I would go like that. Just show me what you do, just everyone. Interesting, everyone sit down. So it's actually there's quite an even split. So what the research has shown is that if you're over 25 to 27 years old, you probably just use your finger, something like that, like that. If you're under 25, chances are you just use your thumb. I don't know if any of you have seen, my children are too young, but if any of you have seen teenagers on their mobile phones, it's just like that. Their thumbs, it's all about the thumbs. So it shows how technology has changed our behaviour in the physical world. Now, the reason I bring this up is that when you look at many boards, I'm generalising here, people in their 40s and 50s and 60s, they generally haven't lived through the technology, and they perhaps aren't as comfortable with e-commerce as perhaps they should be. So one way I've seen in several of the organisations I've worked in is a matrix structure, and I think everyone will go, matrix structure, but in some instances it can be a really good way of getting e-commerce right to the top table at board level. If you have a functional line and a channel line, we found it's a really, really great way for senior board members to understand e-commerce, have functional people who report to them who know e-commerce, and then can debate e-commerce right at board level. I think many people have talked about this again already, stolen my content, but I think we'll see more centralisation. I think we'll see fewer e-commerce teams, more multi-channel teams. It's kind of a no-brainer. Do you need multiple channel marketing teams and finance teams and operations teams? Wouldn't it be great if we went upstream and thought about the customer from a joined-up point of view? It's great for the customer because chances are if you're thinking about multiple channels, you'll have a real end-to-end seamless journey. It's good for shareholders because there's less duplication and perhaps you can take headcount out of the business. We've seen this with Asda recently. They've taken their e-commerce trading teams and reduced those in size and pushed those back into the central trading teams. It's a very, very long time ago, but I don't know if you remember. It used to be desktop and you were at home or in the office. And that was a very, very long time ago. We have proliferation of devices, with proliferation and ubiquity of the internet. And it poses some interesting ethical and philosophical questions. What should we sell on mobile devices versus desktop devices? And I specifically think about my career in banking, where you say, is it ethical to sell a mortgage to someone on a small screen where perhaps they can't read the terms and conditions and don't really know what they're buying? What are our customer behaviours like between different devices, browsing versus buying? How should we market to customers on a small screen? What about day parting? For those who don't know what day parting is, how do you talk to customers differently on different days? Does anyone know what the most popular day is to buy a loan? Anyone? It's actually a Saturday. So customers wake up Saturday morning, finish the work week, they're feeling really buzzed and energised, and they go onto the internet and go, wow, amazing, all these amazing TVs. and then they need a loan there and then because they want to go to John Lewis or wherever in the afternoon and buy that TV. So should we be talking to customers differently on a Saturday, more about loans and up-dialing or down-dialing, say, savings accounts? The point I'm trying to make here is that I believe as e-commerce becomes a larger percentage of the business, if you're 2% of sales as channel, chances are people don't really understand what you do, and chances are the central organisation is going to leave you alone. But in many organisations I've worked with, they've got to 40, 50, 60% of the total company retail sales. At that point, people wake up. The central governance becomes a lot stronger, and they start to ask some of these ethical questions and philosophical and more governance-led approach. And I think we've talked about it more actually earlier. I think we'll see less siloed of the e-commerce organisation. Another point, I think, this is not really about it's not really about how e-commerce teams will change, but the bane of my life is last mile. So for us, it's the vans that take the product to the customer. For some of you, it might be Royal Mail. So last mile is slow, expensive, and very inflexible. As a customer, if I make a purchase, I want it today. I want it at a time of my choosing, at a location of my choosing. And quite frankly, the last mile hasn't really evolved as much as perhaps it should be. So many of you have probably read about Amazon drones. Now, whilst I don't think that will take off, I don't think that will fly, I think it really, some of you are awake, it really woke people up to think, you know what, there's a better way for last mile. Now, these are just some of my ideas, and I think we'll see more click and collect formats. Morrisons are launching, unfortunately I can't talk about it, but an amazing click and collect format later this year. I think we'll see more pop-up click and collect, i.e. vans appearing in car parks delivering to customers. I think we'll see more delivery lockers at high footfall areas. We've already seen trials at high traffic areas such as tube stations. We have a bank of lockers where you can place deliveries. I think we'll see a lot more unattended delivery. So some kind of lockbox, secure box at a customer's house, or perhaps in a town or for the whole street where customers can go and securely access their shopping with a mobile phone, some kind of location-aware device. Many of you probably from London, you've probably seen the Shard. I happen to work just right at the bottom of the Shard, so I see this every day. Now, the Shard is an unbelievable piece of engineering, cutting-edge engineering techniques, one of the pinnacles of engineering, one of the tallest buildings in Europe. Now, there are more than a few e-commerce organisations that have spent more money on their end-to-end e-commerce platform than it costs to build the Shard. To me, it's just absolutely mind-blowing. How do you get a return on that investment? Some of you might have to write investment cases and business cases. Many of the organisations I've worked out, the hurdle rate for investment is absolutely massive. And that's because you have to pay off this enormous upfront investment. So one of the things I've seen some organisations do to try and get a return on this investment is to really sweat the asset. You spent thousands of hours tweaking and honing your e-commerce platform for your end customers. Why shouldn't our internal colleagues get the same level of service? Perhaps you've been on a help desk or had an experience of back office systems. They're usually pretty horrible. Manual, they're inflexible, they're really hard to use. Wouldn't it be great if we could roll out our digital platform across the back office to transform the service for our customers, our internal customers? It's great for shareholder, because you're probably taking out costs from the business, reducing the manual steps, and it's great for the customer, i.e. our internal colleagues, because it would just be a completely seamless operation for them, and it'd just be much easier to use. So one last thing I'd like to leave you with is, again, debating whether to talk about this or not, is one of the things I find really useful, and it's something that's taken me an awful long time to learn in my career, is the importance of really trying to be yourself. And I really try and get this across when I'm talking to potential employers, really trying to show my personality. It's not about being right or wrong. It's just about really trying to show who you are, trying to get that best fit with an organisation. And this is something I'm still working on, but I think it's really important if you're trying to have a really fulfilling career, is to really try and be yourself. Whatever that might be. Everyone's different, and I'm not making any judgment on that, but you have to have a real cultural fit with your organisation. And it just, one of the biggest revelations I've had in the last 5 years is just really trying to be myself at work and really trying to be the similar sort of person I am at home as I am in the office. And it's just had an absolute paradigm shift on how much I enjoy my work. So thank you very much.